Welcome to Follow the Calling podcast, the show that advocates for Christ through blogs, personal testimony, faith-based merchandise, and apparel. I'm your host, Shakira. Let's dive into the episode. Hey, family. In this episode, we're going to talk about lessons in motherhood. It's currently Mother's Day weekend, and I just want to talk a little bit about my lessons and my experiences that I have gone through with the journey of motherhood. When I got pregnant with my son, I was in my junior year of college, and that pregnancy was from a long time on and off boyfriend. So, I was grown. I was 22. So of course we weren't married, but I felt like, that wasn't the perfect timing. I would have preferred to be married, had graduated in my career already, but I'm like, okay, here goes. So, but one thing that did happen during that time, that pregnancy, was me changing my career path. At the time, this was his first child as well. And he was enjoying college. I think he was in his senior year of college. And my plans had always been to be an attorney, go to law school, become an attorney. And I ended up changing that whole career path because in order for me to go to law school, which there weren't any in my city, I would have had to go to either like the Atlanta area or Florida, and he would have to be like the primary parent, which, in these days, it's not anything unusual for the father to, be the primary parent, which is different from the old days, where that's like something that's unheard of. But he didn't want to do that. Now, fast forward, he's been an excellent father, excellent co-parent. So I think that maybe he was just afraid of, doing that, or afraid of how his life would change. First of all, just becoming a dad, period. But then to be the primary parent while the mom is gone, I think it kind of scared him. So he said that he didn't want to do that. So I was just like, okay. And I just had to revamp my whole entire life plans. So I just decided to just find a job in my degree field, which was criminal justice. So that was something that I wasn't really prepared to do. You should have like a plan B or C or D sometimes, but I just had for a very long time always wanted to be a lawyer. So when that happened and I had to come up with something else, I actually didn't have another plan. So I was like, well, I'll just find a job in my career field. So that was one major change. So also, when I had him, I was able to return to work after about 6 months because he didn't get into daycare yet. I had his grandmother helped out with watching him while I, studied and went to classes. One of my sisters was very helpful in keeping him. And I was not working until the 6 months. So that was good. I was able to get a lot more time, bonding time with him, and just had a great support system. But in the beginning, when I found out that I was pregnant, of course, the on and off, we were young and things were not going good. And a lot of times I was, unhappy with his father or the relationship and just kind of feeling alone a lot. But I just distinctly remember feeling excited to have my baby because I felt like, okay, I will always have somebody with me. I had my apartment and, it's just me there. So when things were going rough with me and his father, I just remember, at least I'll have my baby with me. So that was just like a feeling that I always refer to when I think about my pregnancy with him. My first child was just wanting that. And so that was the experience with my first child. So it wasn't much anything traumatic going on. It was a pretty healthy pregnancy. although it was my first pregnancy. Now, at the end, there was an emergency C-section that I had to have because he was 10 pounds and 5 ounces. So that was something that was a super shocker. I was told and heard that, oh, you're pregnant, you can just eat as much as you want. You know, this is the time where you can just enjoy everything. Very much misinformed, very much gained a ton of weight. And that is probably what contributed to him being 10 pounds and 5 ounces. But I also was able to get all, I guess because of my age, I didn't even do much working out, but I got all of that weight off me and I got back down to being slim in size. So that part, didn't stick with me for long. Okay, next is my second child. Again, this is Lessons in Motherhood. I had my second baby, which was a little girl, and I was 28 years old. I had her from also longtime boyfriend, which turned into my husband after I had her. So again, another pregnancy out of wedlock. But we got married after she was born, a couple of years, maybe like 3 years after. We really wanted a boy because he had already had 2 girls. There were a lot of girls in his family. I think he was like the only male in his family in like 3 generations. So we really wanted a boy, but of course she was a girl. And I ended up having to return to work when she was 6 weeks, because that is the time frame that you get off for like the FMLA. So I had to go back at 6 weeks, which I really didn't want to do, but of course I had to go back to work. I had to make money. What I recall from having my daughter was that I had so much fun playing dress up with her. Little boys, the choo-choo trains, the, cars. It's, you can get the little boys cute too, but I think we all know as women that it is just so much fun dressing up little girls with the bows and the headbands and the hairbands and the dresses. And so I really remember enjoying that. What was not so fun though was the fact that the relationship with her father was super toxic, very toxic. Ended in divorce exactly 1 year after getting married. We divorced, and she was about 3 years old when that happened. So she, in the beginning, when she was like 3 or 4 and I started to date again after, leaving her father, she was a little confused, on like, who's this guy, which is my current husband. But, of course she began to just get used to him and just get used to everything because all she knew was her dad. But I tried not to and was hoping that she didn't really feel the effects of the divorce, but she was just so young. Now, my son, on the other hand, he definitely remembers a lot of things, unfortunately, that went on. And I hated the fact that it wasn't even his father, that all the toxic, domestic violence and all of that went on. I hated that. But ultimately, my decision to divorce was mainly for the kids because I didn't want to keep putting them through that. Which brings me to the next lesson in motherhood, which is having stepkids. In that marriage, I had 2 stepkids, in addition to the 2 kids that I had, one with my then husband and then my son that I had from the previous relationship. So what I remember in that was, it was a lot of fun. Now, I did do a lot of things on my own. Now, he worked, but a lot of the times when he was off work, he was hanging with his friends. So, that's nothing that I would actually condone these days, in having a grown man. But yeah, whenever he was off, he did spend a lot of his time, I guess, enjoying himself with his guy friends and whatever else he was doing. So I just remember spending a lot of time with all of the kids myself. Now, financially, whatever needed to be paid, we would both make sure that got taken care of. The stepkids were 2 girls, and that relationship, as far as with their mom, she was in another state. I do recall her being pretty easy to deal with. She was always very grateful and thankful. Like whenever I would do their hair, I sent her pictures of everything that they were doing. They also got in cheer because my son, he's been playing sports ever since he was like 4 years old. So when we got the primary custody of the girls, I put them in cheer. So I just made sure. I remember being up late at night. One time they had, I don't know if it was like a competition or it was something that they were doing, maybe just a game. Excuse me. But I was up like probably till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, doing their hair, creating like these posters that we had to have, like just really going all out to make sure that they were prepared for the next day, that they enjoyed themselves. And I just treated them as if they were my own. So that is definitely a key. When you're parenting and you're having stepkids, like you never want to make the kids feel like, oh, I wish I was with my mom or wish I was with my dad. They're going to feel like that anyway, because if they genuinely have love for their biological parent, that's going to come in, but you don't want them to have a negative feeling with you. So I always made sure to create like a positive atmosphere, a positive feeling, make sure I could just be equal across the board. That is another huge thing. I never wanted those girls to feel like I did more for the other kids than I did for them. Even when it came down to discipline, I just let their dad handle that. I would probably yell or fuss about something if it's like a right then in the moment, type thing. But the main discipline that went on, I just let their dad handle. I will report everything to them because, again, they were mainly with me. I'm dropping them off in the morning. I'm picking them up in the afternoon. We're doing things on the weekends together. So they spend a lot of time with me, but I let him handle that. So like I said, their mom, she was easy. She never interfered in any way to cause any like division amongst the girls and me. And it was bittersweet because during the separation that led to the divorce, it was kind of like an abrupt separation. I had to do what I had to do because, like I said, there was a lot of like domestic violence and fights going on. And one incident happened and that was the last straw for me. So I like silently planned my exit because of who I was dealing with. I wasn't the type of person that we could just have a conversation and, hey, I don't think this is, going to work out. Let's go ahead and split things up. And I couldn't do it that way. So I had to silently plan my departure, in which I did. And then one day I was just moving out. So that was something that was bittersweet. It was good for the kids that all of that arguing and fussing and everything was over. But sometimes I do think, of how maybe they were impacted because of the split. But, sometimes you have to make hard decisions and you got to like do what's the best decision for the majority of the people, if that makes sense. So, so that was that experience. And then I became a stepmom again. I remarried a year after my divorce. We're still married to this day. We'll be coming up on our 8-year anniversary. So we did all the steps to make sure that we were ready and, on one accord and equally yoked and all of that. Normally, that probably wouldn't be, the best thing, leaving from one marriage and jumping into the next one. But this was definitely a different person. I was in a better state of making wiser decisions, and so was he. And fast forward to today, we're still married and we have a great marriage. So I became a stepmom again. My husband had just got primary custody of his teenage son around the time that I met him. So, of course, that's his first time experiencing a teen because that's his oldest son. And it's my first time experiencing a teen because my kids are younger. So, of course, everyone knows what that is like. They are going through their hormones, they're going through trying to find their identity and just going through different things. So that was a lot. But I tried not to overstep my boundaries, and that is something that I will definitely suggest for other people. Because there were a few instances where, because, I'm the only like mother figure that's in the city. Well, I mean, he had his grandmom, but because I'm there, I'm in the house, I would, yell at him too about things that he was doing wrong, with the intention of wanting him just to be a better person. But I later found that sometimes you can have the best intentions. Sometimes you can really be speaking like truth. And because you're not the main parent, it's not going to be received well. So again, definitely would suggest do not overstep your boundaries. Don't try to chastise them. Let the biological parent handle that. I had to learn that the hard way. I kind of just took the stance of how I did with the girls from the previous marriage. But because, a teenager and the things that they go through is totally different from little elementary school kids, it's a different ball game, and it requires different types of conversations and different types of discipline. So I just felt like it backfired on me. Like, I didn't physically do anything, but some of my talks / yelling that I did, I think that what I was trying to teach kind of took the back burner to maybe my harshness and how, I responded. So I don't ever want, and when you're not the main parent, that part sticks with kids more than the lessons that you're trying to teach sometimes. So either way, just to avoid all of that, let the biological parent handle that. That's my lesson from that. Now also, my husband has a daughter who's younger. I believe she was in elementary school. Yeah, she was in elementary when we met. So again, I tried to do what I did with my other girls, and that backfired. And not in the sense of any disciplinary thing. We didn't get into that with my stepdaughter. It was more so of me being hands-on. In my mind, I am thinking, okay, it's super important to make a child feel like they belong, to not make them feel left out, to let them feel that just because your father has a whole nother household and there's other kids here, you belong here too. This is your family too. This is your house too. She's got her own room and all here. So unlike with my stepdaughters, where their mom was very receiving, like she, was very thankful. I could take them wherever I wanted to take them. I could do things with them. Like, it didn't matter whether, my ex-husband was there or not. That was very different with this situation. It was like stranger danger. I don't know you. You don't need to do anything, with my daughter by yourself, in which that can be up for debate on how right or wrong that is. At the end of the day, again, the biological parent is the one that has the rights to however they want things to go with their kid. And you could disagree or agree. But I just realized, okay, this is a very different situation from the last one. So unfortunately, I'm not able to do the things with this daughter that I did with the other daughter, even the other girls, even though I feel like it's for a greater good. It's helping for them to get to know me and get to know my character, get to know the other kids, and just to bring everybody together. But needless to say, that was a fail. And over the years, I just had to just throw my hands up. Didn't get the same responses like the last time. And the lesson learned in this is that the fairy tale blended family may not happen. And that's okay. It took me several years to be okay with that. Because even at our wedding, our stepdaughter was not there. And not to go into all of the details of it, we had definitely prepped and planned for her to be there. We definitely wanted her to be there. She was on the program. We had bought her dress and everything. And everyone disappeared the day that she was supposed to come with us. So yeah, that's what we had to deal with. But for a long time, I didn't even want to put the pictures up from our wedding day because I knew a critical part of our family was missing. And I hated that. And I didn't want to put that up. And then not only was I affected, I know my husband was affected. He's not as vocal as I am. He kind of internalizes things. But we both felt, some kind of way that she was missing. But I didn't want her to come here and constantly be seeing these pictures from our wedding. And then she's not there. But after a while, I'm like, okay, I can't not display our wedding pictures because of something that was completely out of our control, and it is what it is. You have to let God do the work. And I just decided, my husband and I both decided, just let God do the work. We just pray and we hope all the time that every decision that we have made, everything that has gone on, that truth will prevail, that the godliness in us, our good intentions, our love, more importantly, the love that we have will show and will be received by, my stepdaughter as time goes on. She's still a part of our family. It's just not always in the way that we want, like when we have, vacations and things like that. Like you'll look at other families that have those good type of relationships, blended families, where you can take trips and do things. And, we haven't been able to have that. But again, the fairy tale blended family, it just may not happen. And once you just come to grips with that, you'll be better off. Natural parents, no matter if they do a good job or not, they kind of will always win over you as step parents. That is what I have realized. And maybe it's just in the beginning, because that love and that loyalty is for that natural parent. I don't care if your parent physically abuses you. And this is not anything about my stepkids or my family. I'm just using this as an example. You can have natural parents that physically abuse you, and then you'll have a step parent that is the best thing to you and how they treat you. But when push comes to shove, there's still that loyalty to that natural parent, because this is my birth parent. This is who I've known ever since I was born. So we have to just accept that. And the process may be very slow, but again, God is going to do the work. And, just bring everybody together in the way that it's meant to come together. Lastly is the third child, my third child that I birthed, which is my baby, 7. We decided to have him when I was 40 years old. And this is our first child that was born in wedlock. My husband, his kids were born. He wasn't married to their mothers. I wasn't married when I had my first kids. So this one was definitely planned out. And we feel like the first one that we did the right way. We actually didn't even want more kids. I talk about all of that in my the episode, Having a Baby at 40. But we felt like we had enough. We got 2 boys, 2 girls. Let's just focus on us, our businesses. And that began to change later as the years went by. Needless to say, we decided, let's just do it, especially because I was turning 40. And we didn't have that much time to be playing around with the idea. The pregnancy was easy. I definitely had to fight off fears throughout the pregnancy, even though I'm saved. Yes. And we know that we don't walk in fear, but that doesn't mean fear doesn't come across your mind and your emotions sometimes. So don't let anybody tell you that. But the key is knowing how to fight it off, knowing how to rebuke those feelings when they come on you. And the fears were just, you're 40, gestational diabetes, high blood pressure, you could have miscarriages, like all these things that float around in your head because you're having a baby at this age. They cross my mind, but I rebuke them every time. Also, no matter how many times you have a baby, having that test about Down syndrome and all the other tests to just determine your baby's health can be scary because you don't know what the test is going to reveal until the test reveals it. And honestly, a lot of us saved people will say, well, your child is saved and your child is in God's hand. Well, there are actual people out here that have kids that have Down syndrome and that's not the only type of like birth defect that you can have. They're also children of God. So that is a misconception to just think that, you should just know that your child is going to be all right because you're a believer and because you know that they are covered under the blood of Jesus. That's not necessarily true because God still does a work in the children that are born with difficulties. So I just know I did not want to have to deal with those difficulties or have my baby experience those difficulties. So I definitely prayed to not have that happen. And thankfully, all the tests always came back positive. Well, not positive, but we always had good reports. Let's just say that. We prayed heavily. I worked all the way up until 9 months. And I did have him a week earlier it was 3 weeks from before his due date, but it was a week earlier from the scheduled C-section date. So yes, he was a little bit early, but not premature. Thankfully, I'm able to spend more time with him before returning to work, thanks to the company I work for, which is all thanks to God, because, God definitely has his hand in everything that goes on. Just the fact that I had just reached a year working with this company when they created a benefit called the paid parental leave, which is bonding time with your child, 12 weeks of your full pay. So that is essentially unheard of. I have not heard of that anywhere else. And that is outside of like your short-term disability or your leave time that's just unpaid, like the 6 weeks. That's outside of that. That's just something specifically the company created to help its employees bond with their babies. So, and it's for moms and dads. So it's wonderful. And I just thank God that I even got here in time enough to, and had a baby during the time to be able to utilize that. So, but I will be returning soon. So currently, the lessons in motherhood right now, my stepson, he is grown. That first son that I met him when he was a teen, he is now an adult and he just had his first baby. So we are now grandparents. So we are looking forward to experiencing the joys of being grandparents. My oldest son is a senior in high school. He's preparing for college, doing a lot of sports, acting, modeling, and all of that. So that is definitely a lot. He takes up a lot of our time because he's just always got some things going on. My teenage stepdaughter, we don't have the relationship that I would like to have, but I'm definitely still praying for that. Going through different teen things. She's in high school. But, from past experiences, I've just learned to stay in my lane. I let my husband handle whatever needs to be handled, and I am here as support, as needed support. Our youngest daughter, she is coming into her teens. She's with me all the time. Me and her are developing like a strong bond. She's very helpful with the baby. She's in band. She's trying to figure out, what it is that she wants to do as far as extracurricular things. She's definitely doing very well academically. She's always receiving high honors in everything. And the baby is babying. He's getting ready to enter daycare in a few weeks. And I'm just pouring into my kids everything that they need for their future, allowing them to find themselves, being supportive of all of them, just being a support system without being overbearing. And that's for my stepkids and my natural kids. For the stepkids, I'm pouring into them when asked. I make suggestions to my husband and support when necessary. And I absolutely love my family, and I love being a mom. No matter how tiring it is still fun. It's enjoyable. It's like the best part of my life is being a mom, raising these kids, watching them just transition from small kids to teens to adults. It's a wonderful joy. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope someone took something from this, from my personal journey and my lessons in motherhood. And if you're listening to this episode and have not accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you can do so right now. Romans 10:9 says, if you declare with your mouth, Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Welcome to the kingdom. Until next time, bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you heard something that brought you closer to Christ, be sure to share the episode with someone else. Visit followthecalling.com to become a part of the family and stay tuned for the next episode.